For years, they mocked her in the glittering penthouse she called home, calling her a poor rat while flaunting betrayal in her face. Her husband believed she had no family, no power, and nowhere else to go. But the night her long-lost brother returned, now a self-made millionaire with influence and bodyguards, the laughter stopped. Because the woman they humiliated in private was about to be defended in public, and everything they built on cruelty was about to collapse. Welcome to True Love Stories. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also share this video. Now let's dive back into the story. The penthouse overlooked the city like a crown jewel. All glass walls, polished marble floors, and chandeliers that shimmered like captured stars. But to Ava Cole, it felt like a prison suspended in the sky. She stood barefoot in the kitchen, staring at her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator. Her silk dress was elegant, but it hung on her frame like a costume she didn't deserve. That's what Damien had told her enough times to make her believe. "You should be grateful," he would say. "Women from where you come from don't get this kind of life." Where she came from, a 2-bedroom apartment in a cracked concrete building. A mother who worked double shifts. A brother who used to shield her from bullies and promise her the world before he vanished chasing success. That was years ago. Now she was Mrs. Damien Cole, wife to a powerful corporate executive. On paper, she had everything. In reality, she had nothing. The sound of heels clicking across marble echoed through the hallway. Ava stiffened. She didn't need to look up to know who it was. Vanessa. The scent of expensive perfume arrived before she did, bold, overwhelming, invasive. "Still cleaning?" Vanessa's voice dripped with mock sympathy. "It's cute how you try to play the perfect little housewife." Ava gripped the kitchen counter. She had learned that silence was safer than response. Vanessa leaned against the island, scrolling through her phone. She was wearing one of Ava's diamond bracelets, a gift from Damien on their 5th anniversary. The first time Vanessa wore Ava's jewelry, she had cried in private. Now she felt numb. A door opened. Damien's footsteps followed. He entered the kitchen adjusting his cufflinks, not even sparing his wife a glance. His eyes went straight to Vanessa, softening instantly. "There you are," he said warmly. Ava swallowed. That tone used to be hers. Vanessa walked over and kissed Damien lightly on the lips, right there, in the open kitchen. Not hidden. Not secret. Intentional. Ava felt the air leave her lungs, but she did not move. Damien finally looked at her. "Why are you just standing there?" he asked coldly. "Did you prepare dinner?" "Yes," she replied quietly. Vanessa laughed under her breath. "She's so obedient. It's almost tragic." Damien smirked. "You know," he said to Vanessa, loud enough for Ava to hear. "When I met her, she could barely hold a wine glass properly. Completely out of place at corporate events. I had to teach her everything." Ava felt heat creep up her neck. "That's not," she began softly. "Not what?" Damien's voice snapped sharp. "You want to argue? About what?" "Your background." Vanessa tilted her head, studying Ava like a specimen. "I heard you grew up in a place where the elevator barely worked," she said sweetly. "Must have been hard adjusting to penthouse life." Ava's hands trembled. "I adapted," she said, barely above a whisper. Vanessa's smile sharpened. "Adapted? Please. You're still that poor rat playing dress-up." The words landed like a slap. Damien laughed. And in that moment, something inside Ava cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like glass splintering under pressure. She had endured years of this. The first time Damien cheated, he cried and blamed stress. She forgave him. The second time, he blamed her, said she wasn't sophisticated enough, wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't exciting enough. When Vanessa entered the picture permanently, Damien stopped pretending altogether. Now Vanessa practically lived there. And Ava stayed. For Leo. Her 8-year-old son was upstairs, probably finishing homework. She endured the humiliation because she feared losing him. Damien had once warned her during an argument. "If you ever try to leave, I'll make sure you walk away with nothing. I have the lawyers. I have the money. You have no one." No one. Her brother's face flashed in her memory. Elijah, standing at a bus station years ago, promising he would come back rich. He never did. Or so she believed. Back in the kitchen, Vanessa opened a bottle of wine, a rare vintage Ava had been saving. "Oh, this one," Vanessa said casually. "You don't mind, do you?" Ava looked at the label. It had been a gift from her late mother. She hesitated. Damien noticed. "For heaven's sake, Ava," he snapped. "It's just wine. Stop being dramatic." Vanessa poured 2 glasses, one for herself, one for Damien. None for Ava. They walked toward the living room, laughing, leaving her standing alone in the cold brightness of the kitchen lights. Moments later, Leo's small voice echoed from the stairs. "Mom." She quickly wiped her face before he could see the tears threatening to fall. "Yes, sweetheart?" He stepped down slowly, looking uncertain. His eyes, Damien's eyes, were filled with something that broke her heart. "Why does Dad say you're lucky he married you?" The question knocked the air out of her. She forced a smile and knelt in front of him. "Because sometimes people confuse money with worth," she said gently. "But your worth isn't measured by where you start." "Are we poor?" he asked quietly. Her throat tightened. "We were rich in love," she whispered. From the living room, Vanessa's laughter rang out again. Leo flinched. And that was the moment Ava realized something terrifying. Her silence wasn't protecting her son. It was teaching him. Upstairs, city lights shimmered through the glass walls of the penthouse. To outsiders, it looked like perfection. Inside, a woman was slowly disappearing. And somewhere far away, a brother who had once promised to protect her was unknowingly racing against time. Because humiliation can be endured. But dignity, once buried too long, begins to suffocate. And Ava was running out of air. The jet descended through a blanket of golden evening clouds, the city skyline stretching wide beneath it. Steel, glass, ambition. Elijah Reyes watched silently from the window. 12 years. 12 years since he had walked away from this city with a duffel bag, a chipped pride, and a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. "I'll come back for you, Mara," he had told his little sister at the bus station. "And when I do, nobody will ever look down on us again." He had been 22. Angry. Broke. Powerless. Now he was 34. Controlled. Calculated. Wealthy. Self-made tech investor. Founder of Reyes Strategic Holdings. Featured in Black Enterprise. Quietly listed among the top rising Black millionaires in the country. He had built everything from nothing. Sleeping in shared apartments, coding through the night, pitching to investors who dismissed him before he even finished speaking. He learned early that being Black and ambitious meant being underestimated. So he let them underestimate him. And then he bought them out. But none of the success felt complete. Because he had left someone behind. Elijah had searched for Ava over the years, but pride had stood in the way on both sides. After their mother passed, they argued, grief twisting their words into weapons. He left in anger, swearing he'd return successful. She married Damien Cole shortly after. Elijah remembered the wedding photos he once saw online. Ava looked beautiful, radiant in white. Damien stood tall beside her, dark-skinned, sharp jawline, corporate confidence written all over him. The perfect power couple. At least that's what it looked like. Elijah assumed she was safe. He assumed wrong. 3 weeks before his return, Elijah attended a private investment gala in Atlanta. A group of executives stood nearby laughing over drinks. One name caught his attention. Damien Cole, someone scoffed. Man's too busy parading his side chick to notice his stock is slipping. They laughed. Elijah's grip tightened around his glass. Side chick. Another man added. Feel bad for his wife, though. She looks out of place. Like she doesn't belong in that tax bracket. Elijah felt something cold slide down his spine. What's the wife's name? He asked casually. Ava. Pretty girl. Quiet. From what I hear, she doesn't have family backing her. Elijah stopped hearing the rest. Doesn't have family backing her. That night, he didn't sleep. By morning, Elijah had his private security team compiling everything. Photos, videos, financial reports, public records. and what they uncovered made his stomach turn. Images of Damien attending events with another black woman, Vanessa Brooks. Not subtle, not hidden, arm around her waist, matching designer outfits. Headlines referring to her as Damien Cole's partner. Ava was nowhere in sight. Security footage from the penthouse lobby showed Vanessa entering freely, day after day. Then came the testimonies from building staff. They argue a lot. She cries sometimes. The other woman doesn't respect her. Elijah closed the file. His sister, his baby sister, enduring humiliation in silence. And he wasn't there. He leaned back in his chair, jaw tight. I told her I'd protect her, he muttered. His head of security, Malcolm, a towering black man with a military posture, spoke carefully. What's the move, boss? Elijah stood. We go home. The black SUVs pulled up to Damien Cole's luxury high-rise just after sunset. Doormen straightened immediately. Elijah stepped out first, tailored charcoal suit, gold cufflinks, dark eyes steady and unreadable. Success did not scream on him. It settled quietly in his posture. Malcolm and two other security men followed. Inside, the lobby gleamed with polished marble and soft jazz floating from hidden speakers. The concierge approached cautiously. Good evening, sir. May I help? Penthouse 47, Elijah said calmly. Damien Cole. The concierge hesitated. Do you have an appointment? Elijah met his eyes. No. He pulled out his phone and made one call. Within seconds, the concierge's desk phone rang. The man answered, eyes widening as the building owner himself confirmed access. Elijah had purchased partial ownership of the building that morning. Quietly, the elevator ride-up felt longer than 12 years. With every floor, memories surfaced. Ava walking him to school. Ava saving half her lunch so he could eat. Ava telling him she believed in him when nobody else did. And now, she was suffering in a glass tower. The elevator doors opened. Laughter spilled into the hallway before the doors even closed. Female laughter. Bold. Mocking. Elijah's chest tightened. He didn't knock. Malcolm entered first, holding the door open as Elijah stepped inside. The penthouse was even more extravagant than the photos, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the glittering black skyline. Expensive art. Crystal lighting. And there they were. Damien stood near the bar in a tailored navy suit, wine glass in hand. Vanessa reclined on the cream-colored sectional couch, wearing silk, confidence radiating from her posture. And near the kitchen entrance, Ava. She looked smaller than Elijah remembered. Still beautiful. Deep brown skin glowing under the chandelier light. Natural curls pulled back neatly. But her eyes carried exhaustion. For a second, she didn't recognize him. Then her breath caught. Elijah? Her voice trembled. Damien frowned. Who the hell are you? Elijah didn't answer him. He only looked at his sister. And in that moment, he saw everything. The restraint in her shoulders. The careful silence. The fear of speaking out of turn. His hands curled slowly into fists at his sides. Vanessa stood, eyeing the security team. Is this some kind of joke? She asked. Damien stepped forward, trying to assert dominance. You can't just walk into my home. Elijah's voice was calm, too calm. I can. He glanced around the penthouse. Nice place. Shame if it became unstable. Damien's expression shifted slightly. What are you talking about? Elijah finally turned to face him fully. I'm talking about the 18% stake I acquired in Cole Tech Industries this week. Silence. Vanessa blinked. Damien laughed nervously. That's impossible. Elijah tilted his head. You might want to check your email. Damien pulled out his phone, scrolling rapidly. The color drained from his face. You. Yes, Elijah said evenly. Me. Vanessa looked between them, confusion creeping into her confidence. Ava still hadn't moved. She was staring at her brother like she was afraid he might disappear. Elijah softened when he looked back at her. I told you I'd come back, he said quietly. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Damien's voice rose in anger. This has nothing to do with you. This is my marriage. Elijah's gaze turned ice cold. Marriage, he repeated. He gestured toward Vanessa. This is what you call marriage. The room felt smaller suddenly. Tighter. Charged. Malcolm shifted slightly behind Elijah, ready. Elijah took one slow step forward. I left this city with nothing, he said. But I didn't leave my blood behind to be humiliated. He looked directly at Damien. You made one mistake. Damien swallowed. And what's that? Elijah's voice dropped lower. You thought she had no one. Ava broke then, silent tears sliding down her cheeks. For the first time in years, she wasn't alone in the room. And for the first time since Elijah stepped off that bus 12 years ago, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The air inside the penthouse thickened after Elijah's revelation. No one moved at first. The city lights shimmered behind the glass walls, but inside, the atmosphere had shifted from mockery to something far more dangerous. Damien stared at his phone, scrolling, refreshing, rereading the notification as if it might disappear. It didn't. The confirmation was clear. Reyes Strategic Holdings had quietly acquired 18% of Coltech. Vanessa was the first to speak. Damien, what is he talking about? Her voice had lost its earlier arrogance. Damien looked up slowly. You think buying shares makes you powerful? He said, attempting a laugh that didn't quite land. This is corporate strategy. It doesn't concern my household. Elijah's expression didn't change. When your household is abusing my sister, it concerns me. The word abusing landed heavy. Ava flinched instinctively, and Elijah noticed. That small movement told him more than any investigation report ever could. Damien straightened his shoulders. Be careful what accusations you throw around. Be careful how you treat people you think are defenseless, Elijah replied calmly. Vanessa crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. Ava is fine. She lives in a penthouse. She wears designer clothes. Some women would beg for this life. Ava's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Years of silence had trained her well. Elijah turned toward Vanessa, his gaze sharp. Wealth without respect is poverty in disguise. Vanessa rolled her eyes, but she stepped back unconsciously when Malcolm shifted his stance behind Elijah. The presence of the security team was quiet, but undeniable. Damien set his wine glass down hard enough for it to crack. You don't walk into my home with bodyguards and threaten me. Elijah finally took another step forward. The brothers-in-law now stood only a few feet apart. Both tall, both black men shaped by different versions of ambition. But where Damien's confidence had once filled rooms, tonight it flickered. I'm not threatening you, Elijah said. I'm correcting a mistake. Damien's jaw tightened. You think money scares me? No, Elijah replied. Exposure will. He nodded slightly toward Malcolm, who handed him a slim folder. Elijah opened it and tossed it onto the marble coffee table. The papers fanned out, copies of wire transfers, internal emails, evidence of misallocated company funds diverted to finance Vanessa's lifestyle. Vanessa's face drained. Damien, what is that? Damien didn't answer. Elijah's voice remained level. I did my homework before coming here. Financial misconduct. Misuse of corporate accounts. Breach of fiduciary duty. If I present this at the next board meeting, you won't just lose your reputation. You'll lose your company. Silence swallowed the room. Ava looked between them, her heart pounding so loudly she thought everyone could hear it. She had endured humiliation for years, believing she had no leverage. Now leverage sat neatly documented on her coffee table. Damien tried to regain control. This is about pride, isn't it? You left broke. Now you're back flashing money like it makes you superior. Elijah's eyes darkened. I left broke. I came back prepared. He gestured around the penthouse. You built this to feel powerful. But real power is protecting the people who trust you. Vanessa scoffed softly. Ava never complained. Elijah turned sharply toward his sister. Because she thought she had no one. Those words broke something open. Ava inhaled shakily. I didn't want to be a burden, she whispered. Elijah's expression softened for the first time that night. You were never a burden. You were my responsibility. Damien stepped forward suddenly, anger boiling over. She's my wife. And you forgot what that means, Elijah shot back. For a brief second, it seemed like Damien might swing. His fist clenched, shoulders tense. Malcolm immediately moved between them, firm but controlled. The warning was clear. Violence would not end well for him. Damien exhaled sharply and stepped back. "What do you want?" The question hung heavy. It was no longer a challenge. It was negotiation. Elijah didn't hesitate. "You will grant Ava a divorce without contest. You will provide full financial disclosure. You will not attempt to manipulate custody of my nephew. And until legal proceedings begin, Vanessa leaves this penthouse tonight." Vanessa's eyes widened. "Excuse me." Elijah didn't even look at her. "This isn't your home." Damien's pride battled visibly with his fear. "You think you can dictate terms to me?" "I already have," Elijah replied. "The board meeting is in 5 days. Decide whether you walk into it respected or ruined." The room fell quiet again, but this time it was different. The mockery that once filled these walls had vanished. In its place stood accountability. Ava felt something unfamiliar rising inside her. Not fear. Not shame. Strength. She wiped her tears and straightened her shoulders. "I want the divorce," she said clearly. Her voice trembled slightly, but it did not break. All eyes turned to her. Damien stared as if seeing her for the first time. "You wouldn't survive without me." Ava looked at her brother, then back at her husband. "I already survived you." That was the final shift. Vanessa grabbed her purse quietly, no longer interested in defending a sinking ship. Damien remained still, pride cracked, control slipping through his fingers. Elijah walked to his sister and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Pack what you need tonight," he said softly. "You and Leo are leaving with me." For years, the penthouse had echoed with laughter at her expense. Tonight, it echoed with the sound of power changing hands. And for the first time since her marriage began, Ava walked toward her bedroom not as a prisoner, but as a woman stepping into freedom. Freedom did not come quietly. By morning, the city was already whispering. News of the sudden board meeting at Coltech leaked first. Then came rumors of internal investigations. By noon, financial blogs were speculating about irregular executive spending. Damien's name began circulating in rooms that once praised him. Inside Elijah's downtown high-rise, Ava sat in a sunlit conference room across from one of the most formidable divorce attorneys in the state, Attorney Renee Okafor, a sharp-minded black woman known for dismantling powerful men in court. Renee closed a leather folder and looked directly at Ava. "I'm going to ask you difficult questions," she said gently. "I need the truth, not the brave version of it." Ava nodded. Elijah sat beside her but remained silent, allowing his sister to speak for herself. "Did your husband ever threaten your financial security?" Renee asked. "Yes." "Did he ever imply you'd lose custody of your son if you left?" Ava swallowed. "Multiple times." Renee's expression hardened slightly. "Good. That helps us." The word good startled Ava. For years, everything that happened in that penthouse felt like weakness. Now it was evidence. Within days, legal papers were filed. Damien was served during an emergency executive meeting. Witnesses later described how his jaw tightened as he read the header. Petition for dissolution of marriage. He stormed out of the meeting. That night, he called Ava repeatedly. She didn't answer. Elijah had already changed her number. The next move came fast. Damien filed a counter-petition seeking joint custody of Leo and attempted to freeze shared marital assets. He portrayed Ava as financially dependent, emotionally unstable, incapable of maintaining their son's standard of living. When Elijah read the filing, his eyes darkened. "He wants a war," he said quietly. Renee adjusted her glasses. "Then we give him one." Strategically. The courtroom was packed on the day of the preliminary hearing. Word had spread. Coltech investors filled the back rows. Local media lingered outside. What was once a private humiliation had become a public reckoning. Damien entered first, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, posture rigid, reputation hanging by a thread. Vanessa was nowhere to be seen. She had disappeared the moment subpoenas started circulating. Ava entered moments later beside Renee. She wore a simple cream suit, her natural curls framing her face. She looked calm, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she was no longer alone. Elijah sat behind her, steady and unshaken. Damien's attorney spoke first. Your Honor, my client has provided a life of extraordinary privilege for his wife and son. We question whether Mrs. Cole is prepared to sustain that environment independently. The implication was clear. Without Damien, she was nothing. Renee rose smoothly. Your Honor, we will demonstrate that Mrs. Cole's so-called privilege came at the cost of emotional abuse, documented infidelity, and financial misconduct. She submitted printed messages between Damien and Vanessa. Photographs. Bank statements showing corporate funds transferred into accounts that financed lavish gifts and private trips. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Damien's composure cracked for the first time. That has nothing to do with custody, he snapped. It has everything to do with character, Renee replied evenly. Then came the turning point. Renee called a witness, the penthouse building manager. A middle-aged black woman with calm authority took the stand and testified under oath about the frequent arguments, the presence of Vanessa in the home, and multiple occasions where Leo had been visibly distressed. Did you ever observe Mrs. Cole behaving inappropriately toward her child? Renee asked. Never, the manager replied firmly. If anything, she shielded him. The judge took notes carefully. When it was Ava's turn to speak, her hands trembled, but her voice carried. I stayed because I was afraid, she admitted. Not for myself. For my son. I believed stability meant endurance. I know now that stability means safety. Damien stared at her as if he didn't recognize the woman speaking. This was not the silent wife who once absorbed his insults. Midway through proceedings, breaking news hit. Colteca's board had voted to suspend Damien pending a full financial audit. Elijah's acquired shares had shifted the balance of power, just enough to tip the vote. Phones buzzed across the courtroom. Damien's attorney leaned in and whispered urgently to him. The color drained from his face. Power was leaving him in real time. Over the following weeks, depositions grew uglier. Damien attempted to paint Elijah as a manipulative outsider influencing the marriage. Renee dismantled that argument by presenting dated evidence of the affair long before Elijah re-entered the picture. Vanessa was subpoenaed. She appeared once, visibly uncomfortable, and confirmed under oath that she had lived in the penthouse while Ava was still residing there. That testimony alone devastated Damien's custody argument. The final hearing arrived faster than anyone expected. The judge's voice was calm but firm. The court finds clear evidence of marital misconduct and financial impropriety on the part of Mr. Cole. Primary physical custody of the minor child, Leo Cole, is awarded to Mrs. Ava Cole. Mr. Cole will have supervised visitation pending further review. Ava exhaled sharply, tears filling her eyes. Elijah closed his briefly in relief. The judge continued. Regarding division of assets, the court awards Mrs. Cole a substantial settlement reflective of marital contributions and damages incurred. The gavel struck. It was over. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Damien exited first, face tight, avoiding questions. The empire he built was no longer secure. Investors were distancing themselves. Vanessa had vanished entirely. Ava stepped out moments later, sunlight catching her face. Reporters called her name, but she didn't stop. She held Leo's hand tightly as they walked down the steps together. For the first time, she wasn't walking behind anyone. Inside the waiting car, Leo looked up at her. Are we going home? He asked. She smiled softly. We are. Not to the penthouse. Not to humiliation, but to a new beginning funded not just by settlement money, but by restored dignity. As the car pulled away, Elijah glanced back at the courthouse one last time. This wasn't just a legal victory. It was correction. Damien had once believed power meant control. Now he understood what it meant to lose it. Freedom felt unfamiliar at first. The new house Elijah bought for Ava and Leo wasn't a penthouse in the sky. It was a modern estate tucked into a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. Wide windows, warm wood floors, sunlight pouring into every corner. It felt grounded. Safe. The first night there, Ava walked from room to room slowly, touching walls, opening closets, standing still in the silence. No mocking laughter. No tension thickening the air. No footsteps that made her brace herself. Just peace. Leo ran through the hallway laughing, his voice echoing freely. "Mom, there's a backyard." Ava smiled, her chest tightening with emotion. He sounded lighter already. Children always knew when storms had passed. But healing didn't come instantly. In the weeks after the divorce, Ava struggled with an identity she barely recognized. She had spent years shrinking herself to survive. Now there was space to expand, and expansion felt terrifying. One evening, Elijah found her sitting at the kitchen island staring at a sketch pad. "You still draw?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "I used to." He pulled out the chair across from her. "You designed your own prom dress when we were kids. Remember?" Mama cried because she couldn't believe you made something that beautiful from thrift store fabric. A faint smile touched her lips. She remembered. Late nights at their small apartment table. Needle pricks on her fingers. Big dreams stitched into cheap cloth. "I stopped after I got married," she said quietly. "Damien said fashion wasn't serious. Said I should focus on being presentable, not creative." Elijah leaned back, studying her carefully. "What do you want, Mara? Not what survived. Not what endured. What do you want?" The question lingered long after he left the room. That night, she opened the sketch pad. And she drew. Design after design flowed out of her. Bold silhouettes, rich fabrics, structured elegance inspired by the strength of Black women she had known all her life. Women who built beauty out of struggle. Women who carried dignity like royalty even when the world called them poor. Within a week, Elijah arranged a meeting, not to hand her a company, but to introduce her to possibility. The conference room overlooked downtown. Investors sat around the table, Black entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, branding strategists. Not one of them looked at her with pity. They looked at her with interest. Elijah stood but didn't dominate the room. "This isn't my project," he said clearly. "It's hers." All eyes turned to Ava. Her heart pounded, but she didn't shrink. She presented her concept. A sustainable luxury fashion brand centered on empowerment. Ethical production. Hiring and training women from underprivileged communities. Designs that told stories of resilience. She named it Phoenix Crown. "Because rising isn't enough," she explained steadily. "You rise and you reign." Silence followed her pitch. Then one investor nodded slowly. "What's your 5-year scalability model?" The questions came fast after that. Supply chains, cost structures, branding strategy. She answered each one. Not perfectly, but confidently. For the first time in years, her voice filled a room without apology. Elijah committed seed funding but structured it as an investment, not a gift. "You're not building this because I rescued you," he told her later. "You're building it because you're capable." The first year was brutal. Manufacturing delays. A shipment ruined due to a warehouse flood. Social media critics claiming she was only successful because of her brother's money. The old Ava might have crumbled. The new Ava adapted. She visited the production floor personally, speaking with the women she hired. Single mothers, formerly incarcerated women, young designers fresh out of community college. She listened to their stories. She shared hers. Word spread. Phoenix Crown wasn't just clothing. It was testimony stitched into fabric. By the second year, a major fashion magazine featured her in a spread titled The Quiet Storm. Ava Reyes redefines power dressing. She stood tall in the photos, deep brown skin glowing, natural curls unapologetic, wearing one of her own tailored designs. Damien saw the article. He was no longer CEO. The board had permanently replaced him after the audit exposed deeper financial violations. His reputation had taken a hit investors wouldn't forget. He still had money, but not influence. Not admiration. 3 years after the divorce, Ava attended a high-profile business summit as a keynote speaker. The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers and ambition. As she stepped onto the stage, applause erupted. She spoke about dignity, about surviving environments designed to shrink you, about generational wealth not just in money, but in mindset. In my lowest moments, she said calmly into the microphone, I was called a poor rat. What I learned is this. Anyone who measures your worth by your bank account has already exposed their own poverty. The audience rose in a standing ovation. After her speech, as she exited backstage, she nearly collided with a familiar figure. Damien. He looked older. The sharp arrogance had softened into something quieter. Regret, maybe. You've done well, he said stiffly. Ava met his gaze evenly. I always had the potential. He hesitated. I misjudged you. She considered him for a long moment. Once, his approval had meant everything. Now it meant nothing. I misjudged myself, she replied calmly. That was my only mistake. There was no anger in her voice. No bitterness. Just truth. Later that night, she returned home to find Leo waiting up for her. Now 11 years old, taller, more confident. I saw you online, he grinned. You were amazing. She pulled him into a hug. So are you. Elijah watched from across the room, pride quiet but powerful. He had returned wealthy. He had fought fiercely. But the greatest victory wasn't destroying Damien. It was witnessing his sister rebuild herself. Months later, Phoenix Crown secured a global retail partnership. Ava stood in her flagship store during the grand opening, cameras flashing, community leaders present. She cut the ribbon surrounded by the very women she had hired from the start. No penthouse could compare to this feeling. Once, she had survived humiliation in silence. Now she created opportunity in strength. The woman who had been mocked as a poor rat had become something far greater than wealthy. She had become untouchable, not because of money, but because she finally understood her worth. And this time, no one stood over her. She stood on her own. Finally, we have come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more intriguing stories.